What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, joined by Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast after the Packers eke out a victory, Andy. And judging by the internet, I would say Packers fans are falling into two categories today. Either the Bears still suck or the Packers really sucked yesterday and we got lucky. I don't know where you stand, but I felt like the Packers played a pretty decent game on offense. Some concerns on defense. That's where I'm landing today. Where are you at?
Per usual, this is quite the Rorschach test, right? You
Right.
show everyone one image and everyone get on their very polar opposites of the spectrum of where they feel, and we'll just, we'll end at that and never come to an agreement. Per usual, I'm usually the one, and I know you're usually in this sort of realm as well, of like, there's a bit of both, right? Like, I think there's some things that took a step in the positive direction. There were fewer penalties, 3 penalties, 2 of which looked like complete BS. So it probably could have been 1 penalty in this game.
It didn't look like it, Andy.
Yes.
They were. They absolutely
very
were.
much so. So that was an improvement. Jordan Love's decision-making. Yes, there was the pick. It was not the same realm of interception that we saw. Still his fault, but was not a bad decision, just a bad throw. I thought the decision-making was much better from Jordan. One drop, still one that you would like to have for Romeo Doubs, but that was seemingly better. Like, I thought there were some things that, that they clearly worked on the bye week and got better at, and I think there's signs of improvement there. On the other hand, one of the reasons why this was a game, why it was frustrating, was because of red zone offense, which has been an issue for a while now. And you have 2 red zone trips that result in a total of 0 points, which is frustrating. And then I thought defensively, it was really 3rd and 4th down defense. I think it was 9 of 14, 9 of 15, somewhere in there for the 3rd down.
6% on the day on 3rd down.
Yeah. And 3 of 3 on 4th down. So just, they could not get off the field. And when you don't cause turnovers, you can't get off the field, and they take these huge elongated drives, it shrinks the game. And I think it really sort of played into Chicago's hands. So you look at it, you zoom out and you look at it and you say, there's a lot that I really liked. There's a couple drives that short circuited at the end that you really wish didn't, and that could have completely changed the game. Defense, especially having the opportunity to win at the end of that one. You're up by 1, you're at 3rd and 19. You've got everything right there for you. And that was the one that really broke me a little bit, where even defensively, if they would have got off the field on that last drive, you're like, they allowed 19. I didn't love how they got to that point, but they allowed 19. That's winning in the NFL most of the time. And if they got that stop at the end, you feel like, all right, it's an acceptable performance, even if I didn't love it. Not allowing that stop at the end is what hurt. And thankfully, Carl Brooks made up for it with a huge block.
Corey has continuously told me I have to eat my vegetables first before we get to the dessert, meaning we always have to talk about the, maybe tougher stuff to talk about before you get to the fun stuff. Screw all that. I'm going with dessert first. I'm talking about Jordan Love and the offense today because, Andy, I think they're real close. You remember how last year you came out of that Pittsburgh loss thinking, okay, that's a loss, but really feels like they're finding themselves, an identity, a way of working, if you will. And I'm not saying they've arrived. I'm not saying they're going to flip a switch and suddenly go on a tear like we saw at the end of last season. But I will say, everything you're talking about as far as cleaning up the penalties, only 1 drop. And yes, the red zone thing, very frustrating. But if I had told you coming out of the bye week, where everything I read online, everything podcast I listened to, etc., it was all, well, here are the main areas of concern for the Packers, and particularly on offense, right? I thought they did a pretty phenomenal job of cleaning up almost all of it.
Yep.
Like, yes, the red zone, very, very frustrating. No question about it. But that's the number 1 red zone defense in the league.
Yeah.
So even there, I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to be all like rah, pom-pom, the whole thing, but that's a pretty damn good performance. They moved the ball all day long. There was 1 drive that, by the way, ended in an amazing Daniel Whelan punt where, the Bears shut them down. No question about it. But other than that, they moved the ball all day on a really good defense. So I understand didn't score nearly as many points as you would like. Not a big fan of Matt LaFleur going for it on that 4th down. Take the points on the road. I'm a Cro-Magnon man. I'm a caveman. Like, just keep it basic, But overall, I saw a lot of grousing about, coming out of a bye week, this is what we look like. This is what they look like coming out of a bye week. That's exactly what you wanted to see. Everything everybody talked about as far as what they needed to work on, point by point, almost across the board, was addressed yesterday.
I thought so too. And I think it's funny to me of like the Matt LaFleur discussions online of like, the play calling.
I saw you retweet one particular individual who,
I
it's
mean,
very clear Matt LaFleur needs to be fired. Obviously.
yeah, very clear. Yeah, it's 7-3. It's just hasn't gone the way that Green Bay's wanted so far this year. Time to move in a different direction.
Entitled
Doug
talent in
Peterson
the
might be
world.
available soon. That could be an option that they could go with if they want to make that switch. Yeah, but yes, to me, again, inside or between the 20s, just unbelievably efficient. And when you talk about Jordan Love throwing 17 passes, completing 13 of them, and having 261 yards, I mean, it just goes to show you what this offense is capable of at any given play in any given moment. Christian Watson, we of course know, was phenomenal in yesterday's game. Josh Jacobs puts up an unbelievable performance yesterday. I thought he was fantastic. And you run the ball efficiently, you throw the ball efficiently. You have one bad pass, which again, whatever it's worth, you have one bad pass. Willing to if Jordan was not having an interception, kind of problem going into this game, we don't even talk about it. It's one bad throw. It doesn't even matter.
He had a bad throw. Yep.
Exactly. In the context of the rest of it. But yeah, to me, even if you go to the red zone play calling, there's a lot of stuff that I really, really liked in the red zone. There was a couple plays here. I didn't like the Jaden Reed sweep. I wasn't a fan of that. But the one play where like everyone was upset about the 2nd and 1 of like, why aren't you just running with Jacobs? Well, yeah, the benefit of hindsight, sure. But we've seen this play, Aaron, and I know you've seen it before too. If you have the opportunity to hand it inside or fake, and then you're faking the little bubble outside of Jaden Reed, and they're going to get the slant wide open on the backside because everyone's going to jump that bubble. This is a play that they set up like 20 times a game by running this play over and over. We can hand to Jacobs, we can throw to Reed, and all of a sudden there's a slant on the back end of it after Dontavian Wicks pretends to block on the play. And guess what? Your number one red zone defense that you're talking about, they covered it beautifully. They were ready for it. Tip your cap to them. And you live to see the next down. But I thought there was a lot of really creative stuff. I thought there was fun stuff in the red zone. I didn't see anything in this game that led me to believe, oh my goodness, the offense is not capable of doing that. Like, no, they did a lot of really good stuff. The Bears defense got ahead of them on a couple plays in the red zone. You tip your cap, and they ultimately found a way to win the game.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You look at what you're talking about there in the red zone, and I get the frustrations, right? Because it hasn't been pretty down there all season long, right? And then you get to Chicago and you do move the ball and you get down there and you still can't convert more often than not. I get it because we've seen Matt and the Packers offense, when they are successful down in the red zone, it has in the past looked effortless, right? Whether it's all of a sudden there's a running back wide open in the flat, easy toss. I remember Rodgers talking about that, what he liked about the offense when Matt first came on board. Like, there's all these really simple tosses that I got a 2-yard toss to a running back or a wide receiver who's suddenly just open, right?
Yep.
So I understand we've seen that as fans. And so to watch a team continuously stub their toe in this area, especially when we know how talented they are. We know that there's more than enough on offer talent-wise. I understand like how fans can kind of gnash their teeth at this. But the fact that they get paid too, they are a really talented defense, and they absolutely did their work and did their job in most of those scenarios yesterday. I thought for the most part, Matt did a good job of sticking with the run in the red area, something that he has mentioned a couple of times as far as, that's what they needed to do a little bit more of. You saw it result in a touchdown for Jacobs. That's the one area where I get it. I get kind of the complaints, but this, etc. But on balance, you pull back 30,000 feet, and I just think this is one of the more promising performances of the year for the Packers offense.
And I'm with you too. And like it feels this close. I can also understand people saying like, well, it's felt this close for a little while now. Can we get close? Can we get to that point? Exactly. Yeah. So again, I understand all of it. I don't think anyone's trying to make the argument that Green Bay was flawless in this game, that there's not things that they need to clean up or anything like that. There's plenty that they still need to clean up. And red zone offense and pressure on defense are two things that they're going to have to perform better at come playoff time in towards the remainder of the season with some of these tough opponents if they do want to reach their ceiling as a team. But to your point earlier, you said the Steelers game was when they sort of started to kind of find their own. It was this point last year, 10 games in, where they played the Chargers and got that win against the Chargers, and then sort of started to take off. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Lions in Detroit. And there were still some hiccups along the way. We don't need to bring up Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield's perfect passer rating day to go. Like, there were still some learning moments through the remainder of that season. There's going to still be those through the remainder of this season as well. The goal still is to be playing your best football in December and January and hopefully beyond that. And there's a ways to go to still get to that point, but still some positive signs that you can take away from this one.
Now we got to flip it around and eat our vegetables, I guess. We'll
All
talk
right.
about
We
the
could go Al
defense.
Michaels and just avoid them altogether.
I mean, there you go. You're gonna get steak and go skip right to the ice cream and forget all those vegetables. You know, it's interesting because I'm a Halfley fan, and I know it's got to be difficult, especially given the Jair situation where okay, we got to wait and see. He's going to do a warm up. Okay, he's in. What did he give him? Like 12, 15 play? Okay, now he's
Yes.
out. And it's got to be hard as far as, okay, coming up with a plan. Then B, facing a team that has got a new play caller. And I think from what we saw yesterday, a whole new approach on offense. Yeah, I think as frustrating as it was, I kind of tried to give Halfley some grace. But man, that was a team that seemed to have a very Joe Barry-esque approach as far as we certainly saw pressure calls. I'm not saying that he didn't try to get inventive and try to make things work in that regard. But man, so many times we saw a really soft shell, corners and linebackers playing well off the line of scrimmage. And I understand some of this is like situational and you're trying to like guard against certain things, etc. But man, it seemed like a very tepid approach. And maybe that was because they didn't know what to expect. And I thought the Bears did a great job of putting Williams in much better positions. And you're talking about like the Packers offense having limited opportunities. Well, that's because they lived in third and short all day long.
Yeah.
You know, getting to 3rd and 2 or 3, they made it so much easier for Caleb Williams than he's had it over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, I understand frustrations on the Packers defense. I share them. I was there, right there with fans yesterday, but
Yep.
that was their formula. We talk about this almost every week, Andy, when the Packers are set to face a high-powered offense, right? Like keep them on the sideline.
Yep.
Keep them on have these long drawn-out drives, and that's exactly what the Bears did to the Packers yesterday.
No, this is a perfect Bears game plan. Right? This is a 3-decade-long, solution. When the Bears are winning, this is it. Like they haven't had the benefit of a Pro Bowl or All Pro quarterback, right? Which we know they've had to win with the Kyle Ortons and the Jay Cutlers and the Trubiskys and the Grossmans and the Caleb Williams. Now, like they've had to win with those quarterbacks, and the solution for them has been really great defense, really great special teams, and a ball control offense. And that's exactly what Chicago did in this game. I think if there's one thing that I have a couple things that I'm frustrated with defensively, but if the one thing that we heard after is that they weren't prepared for Caleb Williams to run as much. And I thought that was an interesting, sort of commentary on that. And it feels weird that they didn't have any sort of plan for that. And, maybe something got lost in translation. Who knows? We're not privy to any of that, but it certainly didn't seem like they had a great plan for stopping Caleb Williams. The other weird part of that is they've done such a great job of containing mobile quarterbacks all season long that if it starts to become an issue, you would think that there would be things that they have done already this season that you can easily re-implement into this game, even on the fly, to make it of like, all right, we're going to make sure that him beating us on the ground doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know if there was like a, directive from up top that said, hey, we got to start getting sacks and more pressures. And it was like, you know what, this contained stuff be damned. We're going to go and get after the quarterback. But it wasn't like they were having a ton of success with that either.
No.
So
Chicago did an outstanding job up front, picking up almost every single pressure they tried to throw at them. And a big part of that is they got their starting offensive tackles back. Like, hello, yes, that helps. And they played well. But I thought the whole operation on the Bears side of things was exponentially better than it's been over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks that the Bears have been playing.
Yeah, I miss Shane Waldron. I really miss Shane Waldron. I think it's a fair assessment to make.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I very much miss him. But I'd love your thoughts on this because it felt to me, it's one of two things. Either Chicago had good checks in place of like, if Green Bay does this, then do this. Or it kind of felt like Chicago was just a step ahead of having, because when they brought pressure, it felt like they had easy releases to kind of get out of it and plays in check. It felt like Caleb Williams had that autonomy at the line of, I don't know if there was a tell that they saw that when Green Bay was bringing pressure to get the ball out, or even when they weren't bringing pressure to have a different play. Like it just felt like Chicago's offense was a half tick ahead of Jeff Halfley in this one, regardless, because there was 3-man rushes, there were 7-man rushes, there was everything in between, and it just didn't seem to matter. They had an answer for pretty much all of it.
I can't agree more. And what was frustrating, and I think I called this out during watch party, is to your point, Williams had a bunch of autonomy at the line of scrimmage, and he kept, I don't know if it's a straight up audible, maybe it's a cam play or what, he kept making adjustments after looking at the set from the Packers defense. Now, maybe it's an A-B, like a cam play, like, okay, we have this on, but if I can, we're going to the other one. But almost every time, I'm not saying 100%, but almost every time, he was able to take advantage of whatever it was he saw with the Packers set. And I kept getting frustrated that, okay, you see him doing this.
Yep.
Is there no mechanism in the Packers defense to then change what
Yep.
they were supposed to be doing into something else? I understand it's not Madden. I get that you can't just make a change like that. But I would suspect that after you watch this happen over and over and over again, you'd have some kind of conversation on the headset with your guys down on the sideline and say, okay, if he does this, then let's get to this. Just once or twice, just to throw him off a little bit. That was supremely frustrating. And that was also something where I think it leads us to the Quay Walker discussion. And I know you've seen it. I know we've talked about it before. I do think he's playing wildly out of position, but I also am mystified at why is he still on the field, especially 100% of the defensive snaps. And the only answer I keep coming back to is that he's got the green dot, and that is what they have worked on since, basically the start of the offseason program, and they don't want to mess with that. I do wonder what it will take for anyone to get an opportunity instead of Walker to play the mic, because I don't care if it's Tyron Hopper. I don't care if it's Eric Wilson. Give me somebody, but don't give me Eric Wilson. I think that would be a disaster. But at this point, it's hard to ignore. Again, I know people talk about, he's overdrafted and all that. Look, he's in the door now, number of years. That's distant past stuff, right?
Yep.
He's here now. You've got to figure out a way to A, get better on defense in that position in particular, but also B, just utilize him to his strengths, which I think would be occasionally rushing the passer, obvious passing downs. You saw him with a great pass breakup, way like 20, 30 yards down the field on a wide receiver. That's not inconsiderate, right? That's a
1,000,000%.
damn good play.
Yep.
All players have value, but right now his value is not playing 100% of the snaps at the mic. It is hurting the Packers defense.
He's a platoon player. He's not somebody that you can have on the field 100% of the time.
1,000%.
And I don't think either you or I'm getting closer to the, I'm willing to try anything at this point. I'm willing to try Tyron Hopper. I'm willing to try Jamin Davis. I'm willing to try almost everything at this point.
Yesterday
I'm closer to that.
Got me there. Yesterday got me across that line. Yeah.
I don't think anyone like you or I here are saying cut the guy, get rid of him, or that he can't have a role within the team in some capacity. But he's closer to a platoon player than he is to he should be on the field every snap player. And I do think there's ways that you can utilize his skills as a QB spy in those the play that he made on Keenan Allen yesterday. Thought he could have maybe made it even a little bit better, but he still gets back there. And then Keenan Allen adjusts his route. He runs right with him. That's a big time play.
It undercuts it and should have had an interception. It's that's a good play.
Big
time.
It's
a really good play.
No question about it. So I do think there are absolutely ways to utilize him in this defense. But to your point, this thought that there's of all the positions where Green Bay seems willing to be let's have some competition. Let's get some other guys rotated in. To have this one be the one that we're just no, we're not going to have any competition there. It's not workable like that, especially when you do have a linebacker group where it seems like they kind of want to get Isaiah McDuffie in. They kind of want to get Eric Wilson in. They kind of want to get Edgerrin Cooper in. And of all the times that we heard over and over, hey, these rookies have to play. And this is the one where nope, we don't need to get Tyron Hopper in. We're good with that. So
and what's crazy to me is Hopper looked good in the preseason.
There were moments for sure.
There were moments where he's coming downhill and diagnosing the run and making tackles. And I get he's going to take his lumps. He's going to look wildly out of place at times. But it ain't like Quay ain't doing that 3-4 years in, playing 100% of the snaps. I'd much rather have the young guy take his lumps and develop and grow and get better than watch what we watched yesterday at Soldier Field, because it was hard, especially some of those run fits, if you can call it that. It's just, that to me was tough. I do think the one positive development, even though it probably didn't feel like it during the game, was Carrington Valentine playing over Eric Stokes.
Yep.
It's so funny because this is exactly what we talked about a couple weeks ago. Give me Valentine out there, because I know he's going to get beat on occasion, maybe regularly, but give him that experience. Let him grow and develop from that, because what you got in Eric Stokes. It's over Stokes has done what he's going to do. And give me the young guy who at least has some opportunity for growth. And I thought, as tough as it was to watch a little at times yesterday, it was nice to see him out there and get in the mix.
Totally agreed. He had that nice play in the back of the end zone too on a third down play where they're targeting him in the red zone. They clearly targeted him in a few different occasions as well. Yeah. So again, it's a hang with him a little bit. Chicago certainly is not lacking for good wide receivers. There's no easy matchup on the field, whether it's a Dunze or Keenan Allen or DJ Moore. So yeah, I didn't think it was clearly his best performance, but I love his mentality out on the field. I think that gets better with time. To your point, there's no more upside. There's no more like big time playing Eric Stokes. You didn't pick up the 5th-year option. You should be going in a different direction at the end of this year and give the guy that's in his 2nd year that both Goody and Matt LaFleur have talked glowingly about in previous moments, right?
This off season, they couldn't stop praising the kid.
Yeah, so give him a chance. And I think it will get better with time. Don't think this is his 1A performance by any means, but he'll grow from it. And I do think he'll be better moving forward for it.
One last thing on the defensive side of the ball. We heard a lot kind of over the course of the last week plus since the trade deadline, right? Since Preston Smith out of the building, going to let these young guys get out there. And man, they did, especially Brenton Cox Jr. got, plenty of opportunities. What did you think? Because I think it was interesting to see, obviously the 2 plays he makes unblocked. It's nice that he finished. We've certainly seen guys come on block before and not finish. So I'm very excited about that.
Yep.
But between that, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley and Egbari getting a few more snaps. Well, how did you think that group held up? Because I thought Rashawn Gary kind of finally showed up. I mean, I thought that was one of his better games of the season.
There have been some signs with Gary, right? And I thought, especially at the end of this one, he gets the sack. He gets that ultimate picture with the chin strap over his face.
The glare, yeah. I read your tweets glare.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I was talking to Ryan Wing today on the radio, and he brought up your comment on that, and he's like, Aaron Nagler's, it's fantastic.
It's so true, though.
It very much is. And no, I think there have been some signs. I thought the sack by TJ Slayton was forced by Rashawn Gary getting upfield and forcing Caleb Williams up, and then he follows it up with another sack right after that. So no, there've been some positive signs from Rashawn. Hopefully that continues to grow in the right direction. Still need more from LVN, still need a lot more from Kenny Clark, still need more from Devontae Wyatt. And I encouraging, I would say, from Mosby and Brenton Cox, just getting some snaps here and there. Kingsley and Egbari had 2 opportunities to get instead to rights and missed.
He just gets Williams on the ground and that kind of like flying. Like, great. It was
never go full Superman. Never go.
It
full
was
Superman.
So ready to be like just this awesome moment, and then he just completely whiffed. That was so upsetting.
Yeah.
Real quick. I know we're short on time here, but I do want to touch on Kenny Clark real quick.
Yeah,
because I understand people's frustration with Kenny. I am the ultimate Kenny Clark apologist, card-carrying member. I'm always going to point out the fact that he is, by every metric you can, with next gen stats, PFF, whoever you want to look at, one of the top 5 most double team defensive tackles in the league. Yep. Certainly had his, time yesterday in the trenches. He is playing the majority of the defensive snaps every single week, and he's doing it fighting through a toe injury, which I can't imagine is very easy. Now, all of that said, do you need more from Kenny? 1,000,000,000%. But I am just getting sick and tired always follows sick of, oh, where's Kenny Clark? Where's Kenny Clark? He's getting enveloped by 2 or 3 dudes. Like, needs someone else to come and make a play with all this attention that Kenny's garnering. I get it. He's got to fight through that stuff. He's got to be productive. He paid the man, and I understand all that. But I have a level of grace for Kenny Clark, given what he's dealing with.
I have no counterpoint to that. It was somebody brought up like yesterday in the chat, like, are you going to talk about Xavier McKinney and his poor day? I'm like, you know what? He had one bad day, and it wasn't like the most egregious day in the world. If Xavier McKinney has multiple days back to back, we're going to talk about that. And it's when Kenny Clark has a lot of goodwill built up in the bank of what he has done for a long time in Green Bay. If he goes through a little bit of a stretch where there's some struggles, to your point, my assumption is going to be there's probably something going on. Maybe that toe is bothering him a little bit more, or whatever the case may be. To your point, does need to be a little bit more impactful. I think that goes without saying, but there probably is a little bit more to that with Kenny when we've seen it just be phenomenal basically through the entire history of his career in Green Bay.
And finally, I mean, what a week to talk about special teams. Andy Herman
this week.
What on earth was that? Rich Bisaccia calling out the night before in the team meeting? Actual production and game-changing, game-winning play from a special teams unit? What planet am I on?
It's unheard of. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know that I didn't know that you could do that. And no, it's the complete bizarro Packers special teams because usually if there's a game losing play at the end, that's us. Like that's what we get to do. But no, they get to be the game winning play. So that's the bizarro Packers special teams play of the week. And then also usually if things go right, it's like a big kick return, right? Keyshawn Nixon had a big kick return. He was like the one that like didn't actually do anything phenomenal in this game. Jaden Reed, I thought that punt return went very unnoticed. Like because that he was down on the 5-yard line,
hidden yardage right there. Yes,
it's like 16 yards, gets it out to the past the 20 to set Green Bay up on that final game-winning drive, which was massive. And then the Daniel Whalen punt that you mentioned, which Ballantyne would have maybe let that go a little bit longer, but still we're picking nits completely.
You're just making sure. I got no problem with it.
Of course.
The 5 is fine.
Is very fine. That's an improvement over every other year of special teams in my existence. So I will absolutely take that. But no, this was a really, really impressive game from the special teams. They stepped up huge when you needed it most. And this, we always have different variations of complementary football, Aaron, and what it can possibly mean. Sometimes it's just picking up another unit when they're having a bad day. And this one, the offense and the defense didn't have their A+ games. You know who did? Rich Bisaccia's freaking Weefense. Of all groups, the Weefense, Aaron, had the best day. Who would have thought?
Absolutely love to see it. Only because it means we get another like couple weeks, so month of Bears fans crying about it. I love it so much. Absolutely love it. Andy, thank you so much for the time, man. I'll talk to you later this week to preview the upcoming matchup with the 49ers. Thanks, brother.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, Aaron.